I caught my wife with her affair partner in our bed and kicked him out of the house. Oh boy, this is a long story. At 44 years of age, I, a gentleman named my name, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, Jane, 39F, have been joined in matrimony for 11 years, sans progeny. We were once a rather portly pair until a blood analysis 2 years prior unveiled my susceptibility to diabetes, gout, and hypertension. This revelation struck fear into my core, propelling us both toward a significantly healthier lifestyle. I transformed from 117 kilograms to 85 kilograms, and Jane diminished from 83 kilograms to 65 kilograms. We felt rejuvenated, and needless to say, I averted the advent of those maladies. We patronized a fitness center almost daily in the afternoons, where the affair partner, AP, whom I'll dub Baldy, was employed as a trainer. As my wife began to sculpt her physique, I observed numerous men casting admiring glances her way. I was suffused with immense pride. She is notably voluptuous and possesses exquisite legs. Naturally, Baldy was no exception. I noticed his proclivity for ogling women's posteriors. I'd caught him in the act multiple times, and he relished flaunting his chiseled physique. As Jane and I became regular fixtures at the gym, I discerned she was reveling in the male attention. On one occasion, we were utilizing the elliptical machines, and directly ahead was a cable apparatus. Baldy discarded his shirt and commenced performing crossovers. I turned to Jane with a visage that queried, "Can you fathom this individual?" Yet she was fixated on him, moistening her lips. I glanced at Baldy, and I swear he was smirking. I felt utterly deflated. Though I was improving my own physique, I wasn't as muscular or fit as he was. During our drive home, I remarked about Baldy's ostentatious display, and Jane responded, "Really? I hadn't noticed." I told her, "You were staring." She replied, "I don't recall. Perhaps I was lost in thought." I dismissed it and continued driving, but from that juncture, I noted they were conversing more frequently at the gym. Weeks later, Jane was executing squats on the Smith machine. Suddenly, Baldy approached to assist her. How considerate of him! He was gripping her by the waist, and I became incensed. She completed the first set, and I intervened, telling him in a tone devoid of pleasantries, "I can handle it from here." Baldy merely smiled and retorted, "No problem, buddy." He addresses everyone as buddy, and sauntered off. Jane knows me intimately, and upon hearing my irate tone, she exclaimed, "My goodness, my name." I told her, "We'll discuss this at home." At home, the situation escalated dramatically. She labeled me immature and jealous. I expressed that I perceived he was attempting to seduce her. She acknowledged that she was aware but insisted she would never be unfaithful. I inquired why she permitted him to touch her, and she stated she didn't wish to appear discourteous. After approximately an hour of heated exchange, we concurred to switch gyms. Consequently, we began attending a different facility, but Jane harbored resentment towards me in the ensuing months. Her contention was that I lacked trust in her. 3 months after changing gyms, a lucrative opportunity arose at my workplace, albeit in the afternoon. We deliberated, and I accepted the position, necessitating us to attend the gym at disparate times, I in the morning and Jane in the afternoon. This divergence marked the commencement of our downfall. Jane's resentment intensified, and our communication dwindled. I dispatched messages sharing anecdotes of my day, expressing that I missed her, sending memes. Her replies were infrequent and terse. "Yes, Oak, same here, haha." I grew increasingly anxious and proposed couples therapy. She asserted that I was the one requiring therapy due to my trust issues. Desperate to salvage our marriage, I acquiesced, even contemplating that the fault was entirely mine. Thus, the following year, 2022, I embarked on therapy, yet Jane's demeanor remained unaltered. Our intimacy ceased. She was perpetually disinterested. I surreptitiously inspected her phone, but unearthed nothing amiss. I searched her vehicle for a secondary phone. Nothing. I examined her phone once more to scrutinize her location history. It solely indicated home work home gym home. Whenever I endeavored to converse with her, she merely mentioned experiencing a midlife phase, assuring me it would pass. Lacking any tangible evidence of infidelity, I persisted in working and worrying. We reside in a condominium. The security guard, a jovial man named Mr. P, greeted me one day. We often engaged in light-hearted banter. He was rubbing his shoulder and mentioned he had moved a heavy sofa the previous day, resulting in some discomfort. I expressed sympathy, and then he delivered the bombshell. Perhaps you could arrange a session with your masseur. I queried, who? He elaborated, the gentleman who visited yesterday to massage Mrs. Jane. It took a moment for the implications to register. I inquired if he possessed video footage. Noticing my pallor, he hastily obliged. Lo and behold, Baldy, of course. He had visited multiple times to massage my wife. I took the day off and commenced an investigation. Borrowing a colleague's car, I tailed Jane in the afternoon. She parked at the mall where the gym is located, and there was Baldy awaiting her. They interacted like a couple, laughing, embracing, and I was on the verge of tears. They walked several blocks into a residential area. I attempted to follow with my phone poised to record, but a guard halted me, inquiring if he could assist. I feigned admiration. What a lovely couple. Do you know them? He mentioned he believed they were newlyweds but couldn't divulge further. I called Jane, but she didn't answer. I approached her car at the mall and realized her phone was inside. That's why she didn't answer. Additionally, I discovered Jane hadn't attended the gym in 8 months. Unbeknownst to me, the previous night was the final time I shared a bed with Jane. Returning the car, I went home and contacted my parents. Fortunately, my father answered and I divulged everything. Amidst tears, he consoled me and advised gathering evidence while he reached out to a friend who is an exceptional divorce attorney. Jane called upon noticing the missed calls. I informed her I was already home, and she stated, I'm on my way from the gym. My glutes are aching. I could surmise why. Upon her arrival, she inquired, what happened? Why have you been crying? Somehow, I maintained composure. I smiled and claimed I had contracted the flu, prompting me to leave work early. Don't come near me, it might be contagious. I'll get tested tomorrow. I'll sleep in the guest room. She agreed. I wept silently and didn't sleep a wink. Near midnight, I heard her giggling. I presumed she was messaging Baldy, but found no evidence of her contacting another man. Then it dawned on me, perhaps AP was disguised as one of her female co-workers. In the morning, while Jane showered, I accessed her phone and initiated a session on my laptop before returning her phone to its original spot. We both could unlock each other's phones. The session remained active while the phone was near my laptop or on the same Wi-Fi network. Then I uncovered it. Under a female name, the profile picture was a dumbbell. I delved in, and most conversations were deleted. I surmised they used work-related codes in case I snooped. Can you deliver the papers on my desk? I knew she didn't have a desk at work. Heading to the meeting, where are you? At the top, boss is in his office. He's clueless. Clever, they likely referred to me as boss since her superior at work is a woman. Jane emerged from the shower and saw me. You look terrible. Why don't you stay with your parents? I declined, intent on gathering evidence. After Jane departed, I contacted my father and my brother. Upon returning home, she had already packed a suitcase for me, eager to see me leave. I told her I'd take my laptop and checked her messages. Boss will be out of the office. Want to come to my desk? She sent this almost immediately after I informed her of my supposed illness. Good, she took the bait. We didn't have dinner, no kisses, no hugs. I noticed her glancing at her watch twice. As I departed, I told her, I'll miss you. I anticipated her closing the door promptly, but she walked me to my car. And I left. My father and brother were outside the building, waiting to see if Baldy would appear, but he didn't. After half an hour, it struck me. She walked me to my car because Baldy was likely already inside, perhaps in her car. It would appear suspicious if her masseur arrived at that hour. I returned, quietly entered the house, and heard music emanating from the bedroom along with moaning. Their clothes were draped over the sofa near the door. I set my phone to record and opened the bedroom door. There she was, the woman I had loved for 11 years, entangled with Baldy. I captured a few seconds of their astonished faces as they saw me. Jane screamed and shielded herself with the blanket. Baldy adopted an aggressive stance. Approaching me unclothed, I had recorded him engaged with my wife. He barked, Why don't you take a walk, buddy? I struck his throat with an open hand, a move I'd seen in a film. Instantly, Baldy was coughing and gasping, kneeling on the floor. I shouted, "Get out of my house," and propelled him out. I tossed his clothes after him as my father, brother, and Mr. P arrived. I told them, "I'll handle this," and closed the door. Jane remained on the bed, trembling under the covers. I told her, "I've never harmed you, nor will I get dressed. I'll await you in the living room." While waiting, I sent the video to my lawyer, who replied, "I'm sorry for you, but this is a breakthrough." Minutes later, Jane appeared, unable to meet my gaze. I began recording our conversation. I asked, "Why?" She offered no response. Was I such a deplorable husband? She began to weep but remained silent. I stood and struck the table. "Say something, Jane. For heaven's sake." She looked at me, trembling like a frightened animal. I had never raised my voice at her before. I sat and spoke calmly. "My lawyer will contact you regarding the divorce. Secure legal representation." She finally spoke. "We can mend this." "Mend what?" "Our marriage ended the moment Baldy entered the picture, and you chose him over me. It was a mistake." "No, it was a deliberate choice, and these are the repercussions." "What did you anticipate would happen when I discovered the truth?" Silence ensued. "Go to your sisters and confess the truth, or I'll show her the video." She retreated to the bedroom to pack. I followed and watched. Despite trying to convince myself that my wife was gone, seeing her meticulously fold her clothes with those familiar gestures I adored hit me hard. I retreated to the guest room and wept bitterly. I heard her close the front door later. She had collected her clothes from the sofa and even made the bed where I'd caught them. I collapsed onto the floor. Much later, I called my father. He informed me that Baldy wanted to press charges, but Mr. P pointed out that Baldy hadn't signed in, so he was trespassing. The condo could sue him. He relented and left. My inquisitive brother had pressed his ear against the door, and my father had to pull him away. I was exhausted, having slept poorly in preceding days, and nearly passed out in the guest room. The next morning, my phone was inundated with messages from Jane, apologizing and pleading for a second chance. I blocked her. My sister-in-law, SIL, called. Apparently, Jane hadn't divulged what transpired, only that we were fighting. Perhaps it's fortunate that my father-in-law isn't alive to witness Jane's actions. She was his youngest and favorite. My mother-in-law suffers from senile dementia. All this unfolded a week ago. Next week, Jane will be formally served. UPDAT. Greetings, everyone. I'm back with a compelling update. You'll find this as riveting as I do. Before proceeding, I'd like to address a few points. Firstly, I extend my gratitude to everyone who reached out with advice, congratulations, or simply to express concern. I've read in other accounts about the overwhelming support one receives, but this is my first experience with such kindness from strangers. From the depths of my heart, thank you. Secondly, as you might surmise, English is my second language, so I may have erred in some sentences and misused prepositions. My apologies. Also, I mistakenly mentioned that Jane was doing sit-ups. She was actually doing squats. Thirdly, to those who doubt the authenticity of my story, you're entitled to your opinion. I hope my account assists someone in the future as others have aided me. Fourthly, regarding how I struck AP, it wasn't an elaborate martial arts move, just a chop to the throat, and truthfully, I was fortunate to react before Baldy did. I'll admit, seeing him incapacitated felt gratifying. Fifthly, some readers unearthed a post I made in Ask Reddit a month prior to D-Day. It wasn't published because I misunderstood the community rules, and today it's inconsequential. In brief, Jane and I had been attempting to conceive for 10 years. In the 8th year, we saved enough for 3 attempts at the most prestigious and successful fertility clinic in our country. All 3 attempts failed. Jane initiated her affair during the 3rd attempt. That's the clinic where my blood was tested, and considering my family's medical history, they provided probabilities for developing diabetes, gout, hypertension, and experiencing strokes. I should be grateful to them. Someone suggested that Jane intentionally aborted the 3rd attempt because it might have been AP's child. That's impossible because natural conception is nearly impossible for her. The embryos were fertilized in vitro and implanted directly. I tried reposting my question, but she approached me stating, I no longer wish to have children, so I dropped it. I'm certain Baldy had no influence on her decision. This is pertinent later. Now, let's proceed with the update. It's been 12 days since D-Day. What have I been doing since then? D-Day +1, Friday. I had a cordial conversation with Mr. P. He confessed he feigned his shoulder pain. He merely wanted to alert me about Baldy. He also mentioned that a nosy neighbor witnessed me ejecting Baldy unclothed from my apartment. Undoubtedly, within a week, the entire condo would know of my situation. My brother assisted me in changing the locks. After he left, I felt overwhelmingly alone and wept profusely. I called in sick to work. That night, I spoke with my lawyer. He stated he was preparing the divorce papers. He couldn't proceed until he had the evidence. Therefore, my divorce will be a divorce by mutual consent, smoother than an uncaused divorce, which is lengthier and more contentious. He also advised against sharing the video. Jane will be served in 2 weeks. Sael called, but I told her to ask Jane why we're divorcing. D-Day +2, Saturday. Sael visited, and I showed her the video. I drove her home and noticed Jane's car. Upon returning home, I still felt devastated and cried further. D-Day +3, Sunday. I visited my parents. My mother wept with me. She genuinely loved Jane. My father discussed my finances, properties, and other matters. Upon returning home, Mr. P informed me that Jane and Baldy had appeared. Curiously, they arrived at different times. Jane came in the morning, noticed my car absent, and attempted to enter the house, only to find her key ineffective. She inquired with Mr. P about my whereabouts. He was unaware and handed her my attorney's card, saying, Mr. My name left this for you. She accepted it and departed. Baldy arrived in the afternoon, initially asking for Jane. Mr. P informed him, Mrs. Jane, emphasizing Mrs., no longer resides here. He then asked for me, and Mr. P told him I was away with no known return date. Baldy left without further comment. I wanted to inquire about Jane, whether she appeared distressed, healthy, or inquired about me. But then I recalled D-Day and simply thanked Mr. P and bid him good night. At home, I wept again. D-Day +4, Monday. Despite reluctance, I took advice from many of you to hit the gym vigorously. I found a new gym near my workplace and had an invigorating session. I felt considerably better. Upon returning home, I refrained from crying and began removing all of Jane's photos. D-Day +5, Tuesday, I met with my lawyer to review my assets. Fortunately, my father had Jane sign a prenuptial agreement, preventing her from claiming anything I owned prior to our marriage, primarily my house. Remaining assets would be divided equally, and I could seek compensation for her adultery. As compensation, I planned to waive alimony. I could contest for all assets, but everything reminded me of her, and I wished to start anew. Leaving home, I overheard whispers and noticed 2 neighbors who pretended not to see me. They greeted me as they passed. I anticipated this. Afterwards, I went to the gym and then to work. This became a routine, so I'll omit it henceforth. D-Day +6, Wednesday. Nothing noteworthy occurred. I only have Facebook as social media. I ignored all direct messages urging me to contact Jane. I deactivated it and turned to Reddit, enjoying reading stories from others who have overcome similar experiences. I felt uplifted and considered sharing my own journey. D-Day +7, Thursday. I began writing and posted my story before heading to the gym. At work, I was amazed by the reactions. I responded to some comments. D-Day +8, Friday. I spent the morning reading comments and replying. I found myself smiling. It's heartening to feel appreciated. 2 comments resonated. One suggested reporting AP to my former gym, and the other recommended that I might need a fresh start since my home felt tainted. Before going to the gym, I contacted real estate agents to sell or rent my house. I'm no longer comfortable there. I haven't entered my bedroom since D-Day, sleeping instead in the guest room. I don't wish to live like this. D-Day +9, Saturday. Anticipating that Jane might visit, I decided to spend the day elsewhere. She did come. Then she visited my parents and brother. They simply texted, Jane came. I replied, thank you, I prefer not to discuss her yet. D-Day +10, Sunday. I spent the day with my parents. We visited a town 2 hours away and had a wonderful time. I'm unsure if Jane attempted to contact me. My father advised against selling my house but suggested renting it out. I agreed and returned home. Mr. P informed me that Baldy had visited in the afternoon alone again. He inquired about me, but Mr. P told him I was away and uncertain of my return. Baldy departed without a word. D-Day +11, Monday. Yesterday morning, I revisited my old gym. Unsure if I'd encounter Baldy. He used to work afternoons, but given his affair with Jane, perhaps he'd altered his schedule. I found no sign of him. I requested to speak with Frank, the gym owner. While waiting, I chatted with an old janitor I used to converse with. He asked me to send his regards to Miss Jane. I realized my new reality involved informing everyone of our separation. I smiled politely. Frank eventually saw me. I inquired about Baldy. He mentioned that Mondays were his days off. Baldy had requested additional hours and now worked from Tuesday to Sunday in the mornings. I then explained the reason for my visit. He listened attentively until I finished and showed him the video. He remained silent, contemplative. "You're not going to like this," he finally said. I braced myself. Frank summoned the receptionist to bring Harry, another trainer, and Baldy's friend, a bearded fellow. Frank asked him to recount details about Baldy's girlfriend. "Fasten your seatbelts. This gets interesting." According to Harry, Baldy was infatuated with Jane, which Frank confirmed. Baldy had previously received numerous complaints, especially from female patrons, but in recent months he had changed, no complaints and highly professional with all members. Harry then divulged something that left me astounded. Baldy was attempting to marry Jane by trapping her with a baby. Processing this information, I felt a sensation rising from my chest, ascending my throat, and finally erupting as laughter. I laughed maniacally, even shedding a few tears. Frank and Harry appeared perplexed. I thought, "Oh, sweet karma, thank you." After regaining composure, still grinning, Harry hesitantly asked what was happening. Frank explained, "This is Baldy's girlfriend's husband." Harry's face registered shock. "Oh man, this is bad. This is really messed up." Harry excused himself. We then discussed terminating Baldy's employment. Frank explained he needed to report the situation to the coaching association of Pseudonym, and he would likely have to fire Baldy since Jane was a gym member. Otherwise, the gym could face legal repercussions. Regarding his coaching license, I needed to provide a legal document stating that Baldy was the cause of my divorce, including the case number and the video. My attorney would present the video to the association's attorney. I couldn't share it publicly. Baldy would lose his license from that association, though he could apply for a new one elsewhere, which could take months. I asked if Baldy could appeal. Frank believed it would be futile. The association doesn't tolerate such conduct. Additionally, Baldy likely lacks the funds for legal representation. This reminded me of the residential area where he and Jane had gone. I had assumed Baldy was affluent. Frank leaned in. "Which residential area?" I showed him on the map app. "You followed them there?" "Yes, on the day before D-Day." Frank grew agitated. "That's my late father's house." He explained that after his father's passing, he inherited the house. Obsolete or repair-needing equipment was stored there. He had lent Baldy the key to store items occasionally, but hadn't authorized him to stay there. Baldy likely had made a copy of the key and was living there illegally. Frank intended to investigate further, noting the abundance of cameras in the area. As I was leaving, I heard, "Mr. My name." Wait, it was Harry. He apologized for the situation. Baldy had never disclosed his girlfriend's identity, only mentioning he'd met her at the mall. I thanked him and moved to exit. He pressed, "Can you tell me what happened?" I replied, "You've had it. A summary is that he was involved with my wife, and now we're divorcing." I stepped away. "What will happen to Baldy?" "That depends on Frank and the coaching association." I attempted to leave again, "But how are you handling it?" This felt odd. I stared at Harry and recalled that Baldy had visited my house twice. "You called Baldy, and he's on his way here, correct? You're stalling." "Am I mistaken?" He looked guilty. "Please, Mr. My name, speak to him. He's really desperate. His your wife isn't returning his calls. Tell me, Why should I care if he's languishing? I'll stay here with you so you won't be afraid. I chuckled. Afraid? Of that weakling? Didn't he tell you I expelled him from my house naked? Harry seemed skeptical. Fine, let's see what he wants. I noticed cameras where we stood and sat at a table in the reception area. I doubted Baldy would attack me, but one never knows. Besides, I was curious. He arrived 10 minutes later, seeing me waiting. He extended his hand. I folded mine. What do you want? I asked coldly. He sat opposite me. Listen, buddy. Stop. We're not buddies. Mr. S., the janitor, is my buddy. You are not. He appeared contrite. Okay, my mistake. I want to apologize for everything. I never intended to hurt you, and I genuinely care for Jane. You've just uttered 3 falsehoods. You're not sorry. You meant to disrupt my life, and you only care about yourself. His demeanor shifted to annoyance. Fine, whatever. Just tell me where Jane is. Last I saw her was when I expelled her from my house after ejecting you unclothed. I knew Harry was listening. Baldy's face reddened. That was a cheap shot. I should sue you. From what I understand, you entered my home illegally and perhaps were assaulting my wife. I have footage of you leaving, but you didn't sign in. He shifted again. Okay, I'm sorry. Tell me what you want from me. Please inform Jane I need to speak with her. At that moment, Frank hurried over, likely alerted by the cameras. Is everything all right here? All is well, Frank. I was just telling this individual what I desire. I leaned close to Baldy. What I want is for you to receive what's due, the consequences you've earned. I aim to dismantle your aspirations as you did mine. You wish for children? Well, guess what? You won't have them, not ever. Baldy retorted, What's that supposed to? But Frank interjected, requesting Baldy join him in his office. Harry looked impressed, grabbing Baldy's arm. Man, you're in deep trouble. I finally departed. D-Day plus 12, Tuesday. I feel prepared to confront Jane now. I'm still grinning as I type this. So, how have you all been?